Hello, my name is Dan. I'm from Sturket's Automated System Solutions. I'm one of the developers. We're panning now across all the components used for the CC Quilter system, automated quilting machine, designed to use your computer and some very easy to use software to drive your hobby quilting machine. So we're going to be going through the motions of putting together each of the assemblies in this next series of videos. And then we'll have a video to talk about installing it onto your frame. This system was designed originally for the Gracie Frame 2, the Little Gracie 2, and it fits perfectly, and it can be adapted for almost any other quilting machine. We're going to be assembling all the various assemblies that are going to be added to the Gracie Little Frame 2 machine. These assemblies can be adapted for almost any machine. It should work for everything. But we'll be discussing how to mount it onto the machine in a later video. Right now we're going through the motions of putting together all these assemblies. Your kit may have them already assembled, but just in case, here's the instructions. This bracket is going to be mounted to the front of the carriage frame, the one that the machine sits on that rolls left and right. So as we talk about the machine as you would normally use it holding the handles in the front of the machine, that we're going to call the front. Then we're going to have the left hand side and the right hand side. The entire carriage rolls from left to right. That's the horizontal axis or the X axis, and then the front to back movement is the Y axis or the vertical axis. So first we're going to take, we have bolts. There's only two bolts sizes in this kit, only two diameters, 1/4 inch and 5/16. So these are the shortest ones of the bolts. They're 1.5 inches deep, and then we have two sizes of these eye bolts. We're going to be using the short one on this side. So first we take the eye bolt and we put the locking nut on it, with the rounded edge facing in, so the flat edge is going to go up against the steel bar. And how much you put this on really doesn't matter, because we're going to be doing adjustments later. What will matter here is that when you look at this bar, the hole is offset. The first hole on the edge is offset. It's more towards the top. We want this to go behind it. And then another washer, and then a locking nut. Again, just tighten it down a little bit so it's a little snug. And it's going to be used in this direction, because what's going to happen is we're going to put the belt around here and tie wrap it. So this will hold the belt. These bolts are going to go straight through this side, both of them, with a washer on the other side, and another locking nut. These will be used to mount this bracket to the front of the carriage assembly. And that's the completed unit. Next we're going to be assembling the two end brackets to hold the horizontal belt in place. These will be mounted to the rear legs of the Little Gracie 2 frame. There are two sizes. The only difference between these two is the orientation at which these bolts get mounted, and there's a small and a large eyelet. The small eyelet is going to go towards the left hand side of the machine as you're looking towards the front of your quilting frame. That's so that we get the most movement we can to the left of the machine for starting up quilts. And the other one we'll be using for adjustments on the other side of the machine to tighten the belt. So we're going to take our eyelet, put the nut on rounded side first, and put it on about 1.5 inches. If you have any trouble holding this eyelet while you're doing this with your 7/16 inch wrench, you can use a screwdriver, put it through the hole of the eyelet and hold it, and it'll give you a little bit more torque and capabilities if your hands are not strong enough to hold it. Then you put a washer on it. Goes in from the opposite side. This will be facing back to the machine, and this is going to be pointing towards the middle of the machine. and this is mounted towards the outside of the frame. We'll be showing mounting of these in a later video. For now, we're just putting the assemblies together so that all the pieces for each assembly are in one place. And it's not important how much you tighten this. We're going to be doing adjustments to this on the machine itself. Just get it tight enough to hold itself there. And then bolt, washer, to the opposite side, washer nut. We'll be removing these bolts later just to drill holes through it once we position the belts, and we drill them in to get the belts horizontal. The slot is used for belt adjustments up and down in case we don't get these holes just right when we're mounting it to the machine. And there's our right side done. Now we move to the left side. The left side uses a shorter one. Same thing. Round it in first. Washer. Since this will be pointing towards the back of the machine on the left side, you want this to be on this side so that the belt can go between them. Again, washer. Snug it down a bit. That's it. And for the opposite side, we're going to use washer nut, or washer bolt, washer bolt, washer, washer nut. Now imagine me standing behind the machine, and you're standing in the front. This will be your left, and this will be your right. And what's going to happen is he's going to mount to the leg to the machine, and this bolt's going to go between these, the belt is going to go between these two eyelets. So that's it for this assembly. Okay, now we get to mount some of the fun stuff. Okay, these are going to use two different size bolts. One's 5/16 by 2.5 inches. These are used to hold the skate bearings in place. And the other is a 1/4 by 2 inches. These will be used to mount this to the back of the carriage that rolls left to right along the horizontal point or the x-axis. Okay, so we're going to start very simply by taking a bolt, putting it through a washer, through the skate bearing, through a washer. Okay. Holding this with the extended arm in the upper position, put this through the back. And do the same thing with the other bolt. Bolt, washer, skate bearing, washer, and through the back side. Okay. Then on this side we're going to put a washer, bearing, washer, and nut. Washer, bearing, washer, and nut. When you tighten these down, don't tighten them too much. The idea is that these bolts need to be able to spin. As they're spinning, we'll use a 1/2 inch or inches to tighten this up. As they're spinning, it's because the belt goes around the pulley and around these two bolts, so that the belt spins easily and won't get caught up on anything. And we keep the belts tight enough, so this is just going to spin, and the belt will spin around it. We don't want these too tight, or the bearings won't spin at all. And leave enough room for some thermal expansion of the wood in case it gets colder or hotter. Alright, so now we've got that installed. This is going to be mounted to the back of the carriage from the rear of the frame, with this pointed towards the left side of the machine as you're looking at it from the front. It'll become more clear in the installation video. So we're going to take these bolts, the 7/16 by 2 inch bolts, and put them through the holes in the front and push them all the way through. These are going to be used to mount it to the back of the machine. If you have any trouble, simply, because the holes are just big enough to go through in the first place, just give them a little push. Okay? And then it's a washer and a locking nut. Again, we're going to be taking these off to mount it to the back of the machine carriage later. For now, we don't want to lose these, so there. Now we're going to take this eye bolt, which is a 3-inch long or 4-inch long eye bolt, and we're going to mount it here. So first we have to take a nut, put it on the rounded side first, one of the locking nuts. Use a 7/16 inch wrench. Put it on. If you notice, none of these assemblies use lock washes. I prefer to use locking nuts because they're very easy to adjust and you don't have to worry about them losing their tension. So just about an inch, inch and a quarter, inch and a half, something like that, just so it goes through the wood. Then put a washer on it, put it through the wood, washer on the other side, and a nut. It's slotted so that we can do some adjustment tweaking after we have the carriages mounted to the machine. That should be it for that. Okay, so now we've got all this mounted. Now for the next part, there's a couple ways of doing this. This is probably the easiest, is to take the long belt that's in the kit, and we're going to install that now. Otherwise you have to try to snake it through around the gear, around the pulleys. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and I'm going to hold it in this direction. This is going to go, and you can see there's a piece of wood in here where it's got to go up and around. So what I'm going to do is put it with the two sides of the belt down through here, and then I'm going to reach through there with a bolt or something and pull it through. Okay, pull it through. And again, the gear side of this belt is down. Now I'm going to put it through and underneath the other bolt. But I'm going to leave a loop at the top so that when I put the stepper motor with the gear through this hole in the center, it'll already be where it needs to be. So if the gear goes, the belt will go around the gear. This is the easiest way to do it. And then slide this through and down around. If you bought an assembled kit, you probably don't have to do any of this, but just to show folks how to do it. And this does take a little bit of finessing. Maybe a pair of tweezers would help. If you do have problems like I'm doing now, I suggest what you do is simply take the bolt back off from the escape bearing, back it out, push it down, put the bolt back in around it. There. That made it much easier. And make sure you put the washer, escape bearing, washer nut back on. Okay, so what I've got is I've got this loop inside where when I put the stepper motor in, it's going to fit, slide right into the center of the loop. That's too tight. Very important not to have these too tight, or it won't roll in the boat, it'll slide around it and heat damage itself. Okay, so I can see the loop inside, so when I mount the stepper motor in, it'll be just fine. When I mount the stepper motor in, I want the wires hanging down. So once we have the stepper motor, it just should slide right in position. We take these Phillips head screws and use a Phillips head screwdriver to just mount them in all four positions around the stepper motor. These screws are 1/2 inch long screws. The threads are 1/2 inch long. If you go any further than that, it'll go into the cavity where the belt is and possibly damage the belts. You don't want to do that. So I used the 1/2 inch screws that came with the kit. And that's the entire assembly. So what will happen now is if you tighten this belt up, it'll go onto the stepper motor gear, this is where you want it. And now the stepper motor will drive it. Now you can still move these. You can see how this is spinning. Both are spinning. You can still move it. You have to move it slow or you'll strip these belts off. Okay? But that's the essentials of how you build this assembly. And it'll be mounted on the back of the machine in this position. And then the vertical belt will attach from here to here to the front of, from here to here to the front of the metal bracket that we built earlier. So that's that assembly completed. Alright, this will be the last of our assemblies. This is the vertical or the Y-axis stepper motor assembly, and it works the same way as the last one. We're going to be starting first by putting on the skate bearings. So we take these 5/16 by 2.5 inch bolts through a washer, through the skate bearing, through a washer, and since this will be mounted this way to the left-hand side of the carriage that rolls from front to back along the vertical Y-axis, it'll be this way. We're going to be putting these from the back side, because this will be mounted right up against the frame. So, in, do the same thing with the other one. Washer, skate bearing, washer. And on the other side, washers, skate bearing, and washer. And finally, enough to hold it all together. When you tighten them, don't tighten them too tight. You want these bolts to be rolling inside of the skate bearing. Washer, bearing, washer, nut. If they don't roll, the belt will heat up and it will wear out much faster than you want it to. Then we tighten them down a little bit. Leave enough slop in it so that the any weather changes, when it changes to wood, it spins rather freely there, maybe a little bit tighter. Will not affect these things turning. And you can check them by watching from the outside if these are rotating or not as the machine is moving. And if they're not, then they are too tight. You need to stop the machine and loosen them up a bit. Okay, that's good. All right. Next, we're going to use our 1/4 inch by, I believe these 2-inch bolts. These are going to be used to mount it to the frame. These are going to go through the frame of the machine once we drill the holes, and then through here, and then have a washer and a nut on them. So let's just do that now. We'll take these off when we line it up on the machine, drill holes through here so that we know exactly where it's fitting. But for now, we're trying to keep all the pieces of each assembly together, so when we do assemble this to the machine, it's a lot easier to figure out. Okay, and that's it for that piece of it. Now, same thing here. We've got a shorter belt that we're going to use, and we're going to put this in here before we put the stepper motor in. It's the fastest way to get these belts in. The gear side is going to be pointed down to the bottom section. It's going to go up underneath one of these bolts. Again, if you have any trouble, I'll show you the easiest way to do it if this gives you a problem. Unfortunately, my belts came off a machine that was in working order, so the ends are crimped. So it went under the bolt, so it's going to roll on this side, and this is going to go around the gear once the gear goes through this hole. Okay, so now we have to go underneath the other side of the bolt. But again, I'm going to show you an easy trick to do if you're having any trouble doing this. Because sometimes it can get frustrating just trying to roll a belt through that narrow spot. So I take the bolt out, back it off a ways, and then I just put the belt in place and push the bolt in so the belt's behind the bolt. And then I put it all back together again. Washer, skate bearing, washer, nut. Okay. And what I've got now is I've got a belt with a loop. goes underneath this bolt, goes up, loops around, goes back underneath this bolt and out. Alright, so now I'm going to tighten this up a little bit. And then I'm going to mount the stepper motor. Stepper motor gear has already been mounted for you, but if not, it should be 1/4 inch to 5/16 mounted gap between the gear and the stepper motor face. That gives you plenty of, sets it up in the right position through this plywood. Okay, and put this down. Again, the wires are going to face, we're going to face these in a different direction. We're not going to face them down because we want these to go towards the back of the machine more. Okay, so we're going to face these wires in this direction, along with the frame mounting. So when we mount this thing and tighten this up, this will be moving and nothing else. Alright, and then we use the 4 1/2 inch screws and the screwdriver, Phillips head screwdriver. Mount these in. The 1/2 inch in depth, you don't want anything more than that, or it'll go through into the belt cavity area and give you problems with the belt. Now, my assembly already have pre-drilled holes or pre-screwed holes because I've already assembled this unit once before. So these are going in fairly easy. You may find that they don't go in quite as easy as I'm doing here, but that's okay. Just turn it in. Okay, I'll turn one of them in, tighten up. The stepper motor should not move. It should be good and tight. It shouldn't wobble, wiggle, or anything else. If it does, your machine won't be as accurate as it could be. And then we just verify that the belt is on the gears, and it is. And if you turn this, you'll see one of these moving. There's a pulling against it. And that's our final assembly for our vertical axis Y assembly. And here are all the completed assemblies we just finished putting together. If you bought an assembled kit, this is what your kit would look like when you first get it. And in another video we'll show how to install this on a machine. There are a couple of other components I wanted to show you that go along with the Quilter assembly, and here they are. These are the additional components in the kit. Alright, what you'll see is, you'll see a power supply. There is no on-off switch to this machine. You simply plug the power in and it's on. Okay, there's the power supply. It's a separate AC adapter, so if anything goes wrong, it's easy to replace. The AC cord that comes with it. There's a 20-foot long or 10-foot long USB cable that's used to connect your computer to this little box of electronics. This box of electronics has a power plug on it, where the power plug snaps in and locks in. Has an X-axis DB9 connector, a Y-axis. So the X-axis again is the horizontal axis. The Y-axis is the vertical axis, the front to back of the machine movement, while the X-axis is the horizontal left to right, right to left. And then you can see the USB plug. And then there's another jack that's going to be used for expansion. I'm hoping to eliminate the need for a stitch regulator very shortly. And if I'm successful in what I'm planning on doing, anybody that buys this kit is actually going to save themselves if they haven't already bought a stitch regulator, about $600 for a stitch regulator. So with the cost of this machine being so low, subtract out that $600 and this becomes very, very cheap to purchase, install, and run. The next set of videos will be videos of how to install this on a little Gracie 2 frame. It is adjustable, or it can be changed very easily. All the components are made out of plywood. They're cut on a CNC machine, so they'll be exactly the same every time. I can work with you to actually model a fitting to your specific machine. You can also put a plate behind this wood, a separate plate to use to mount to your machine, a thin piece of 1/4 inch glue and plywood or something. But we'll be discussing that in an installation video. And watch the website on Sturkits Automated System Solutions. It's www.sturkits.com. That's STIRKITS.com. You'll be able to download the software package that's used to run this machine, along with some sample patterns. The program is free. It runs in simulation mode, so that it would work as if you were driving an actual quilting machine. You'll be able to see the crosshair of where the stitching needle would be. So you'll be able to try out the software, see if you like it, see how easy it is to use for you before you actually purchase something. Thank you very much.